All right, guys, we got our hands on this Pro R, and it's actually ours. And so we don't have a Polaris guy standing there telling us what we can and can't do. We're getting a little silly with this thing, but we've had it all week. We've been in this thing from sun up to sundown. We've rock crawled, we've trail rode, we've jumped it, we went fast. We're trying to really get our handle on what this machine is and how it works. All right, real quick, and I am just gonna brush over all of this stuff because there are a million videos. You know, Polaris even has a great video series on all the specs and why and how they built the things the way they did. But let's start with the motor. So this is a 2-liter, that's 1997 cc's ProStar Fury engine. It is 225 horsepower, naturally aspirated, no turbo. The drivetrain it is connected to is a divorced rear end. It has a separate transfer case. The drive lines are big and huge. The clutch is all redesigned. It's actually quite a bit larger. They've got different cooling. There's actually cooling vents up here and another cooling path in the rear. They're really channeling it to get that clutch cool. The whole, all the way up through the front, all your steering components. The steering rack is way heavier duty. The motor's down on the rack now. Your suspension, all the bolts are now 14 millimeter diameter. I mean, I remember back in the day, you know, they were 10s and then they went to 12s. These are 14. A 14 millimeter bolt is huge. So all your suspension is connected using that. All of your arms are now boxed. So they're structurally designed. They're stamping them out. They're all welded together, super strong. I mean, you take one look at this thing and you can tell. The frame, way more rigid on the frame. The chassis, you know, you look at the roll cage and it's got all sorts of gussets all over it. It's all one piece. It's not all bolted together. And that leads us right into the suspension. So the stance on this thing, 74 inches wide. Very, very stable. And then the Dynamics DV suspension system. So basically it has I guess a more advanced computer that the shocks are giving feedback to and they're making changes. So it has quite a few settings on it. So you've got your Baja Mode, you have your rock mode, you have your track mode, and you have your comfort mode. And there is a ton of difference between all of those. And then onto the interior. It's typical Polaris. Everything seems to be where it should be. The steering wheel telescopes, there's good leg room in the back. It's very nice, very typical. All right, let's get down to what we really think. You know, there's 5 of us. We've been swapping back and forth and really trying to understand this machine. We've raced it. That was a lot of fun. But I really think that this motor is awesome. It's crazy how smooth it is and how strong it is. Without the turbo, I'm really used to driving with a turbo, and this still feels like it's got the punch. Now, one thing, I feel like I can feel the weight of the machine. I feel like when I'm jumping out of corners, squirting out of corners, I feel like I can feel the 2,600 plus pounds that this machine weighs, as opposed to like a Can-Am 4-seater that's right around 2,000, under 2,000 pounds. And so you can really feel that. But what I do love is the throttle control modes. And so you have race, which is unreal, just super fast. You know, you hit the gas and stuff just happens. And then you have rock crawl mode that really tames it down. It kind of tames it down too much for me when I'm in an extreme spot, and that's kind of a consensus that I've seen a bunch of videos and everybody's kind of going, you know, first time you get in it, you're like, ooh, I don't like the rock mode. But if you're tired, it's the end of the day, you want to smooth it out, you want to look around a little bit, that rock mode is really nice. And then your other throttle mode is the sport mode, and that's the one I use the most. That's the one I feel most comfortable with. I can do pretty much everything in that mode. All right, next up is handling. Oh my gosh, that's the part I love about this machine the most. It just flat works. That's really all there is to it. So overall, this machine feels a little bit more rigid. It feels more firm. Even rock crawling, it feels like, you know, when I first got in it and the first obstacle I walked up to thinking, oh man, this thing isn't gonna flex, it's not gonna get traction, it feels, you know, but no, it was just the opposite. It feels so controlled. you know, when you compare it to maybe like our older Polarises, you know, there's a little bit of flex. You can kind of feel a little bit of flex, even in the driveline. You know, you walk up to something, you can kind of feel the axles flex a little bit and the suspension moves a little bit. This thing doesn't have any of that sensation. It's kind of more like a little bit of a Jeep. But it soaks up everything, and it just feels like the wheel is controlled. You know, you sometimes you stick your head out and watch the front tire and it's kind of bouncing along. It kind of looks like a basketball or something. You're going, man, how's that even staying on the ground and soaking up everything? This one, I think wheel control, the rebound, the compression adjustments, I really feel like this, as far as electronically controlled suspension, this thing really works. And that's really it. I mean, cornering, it stays so flat. You can charge so hard. I mean, you are not even focusing on body roll or anything like that anymore. It is just making sure it is pointed the way you want to go, and as fast as, you know, you're getting on the throttle as fast as possible. What I really like about this suspension and the handling is the suspension settings. So you can change those just by flipping the switch, and they really make a difference. The soft setting is my favorite, and it's the one that I use the most just for trail riding. And it is a lighter compression, a lighter rebound, and a lighter steering. Okay, then you go to the rock mode. The rock mode's next, and I use the rock mode quite a bit when I'm actually crawling an obstacle, or I've got some big stuff coming up that I kind of want to keep the machine flat, because it's cool, because it gives you a little bit taller ride height, and then it's soft on the compression, soft on the rebound. The steering is still nice. You know, it's light to your hand, so that means you've got more assist, right? And so it's helping you so you can turn the big tires around. And so that is good. It also leans into obstacles a little bit. So if it's an incline, it's going to help you. You know, it's going to lean into that obstacle side to side and front to back. That's kind of a cool feature on that. The downside of that is it feels a little stiff sometimes when you're really articulating that, because it's trying to keep you flat, where the comfort mode is going to let you lean a little bit more. Okay, and then the next mode is the track mode, and that is spirited driving. That's everything else, and it actually feels really good. You know, I kind of touched on the wheel control, and one thing that's really cool is, you know, we've all kind of hit a little transition that's got a little kicker to it, and with these big machines, especially with a lot of weight, you really G that out, and as it pops up, you go nose down. There's a sensation in this that I've not felt in the other machines, and you can almost feel it just really slow down that rebound. I mean, even if you bottom it, you're really slowing down that rebound, and you're not getting that sensation. It's very comfortable. It gives you a lot more confidence, and it feels like you're on the ground and in control. All right, and the last mode is Baja, and I can totally see where the Polaris engineers are coming from on this one. They wanted to make this thing, they kept saying it in their videos, that they want to make a 3-foot whoop eating monster. And this Baja mode is gonna do it. So basically what that's doing is stiffening up the front, getting your ride height up on the front. And when I say stiff, I mean stiff. I mean, it feels like you can just plow that into a wall and it's probably gonna soak it up. I feel like it's a little stiff under braking. I'd love to have a little bit more front end traction when I'm coming into a corner. But when you're blitzing, when you are just flat out, and keep in mind, Polaris designed this machine for out west. It's the sand dunes, it's the wide open deserts, and that setting is perfect for that situation. You know, when it comes to durability, you're always taking a chance with a very first model off the assembly line. You know, first year teething problems. And, you know, this feels super durable. Everything about it just speaks to me durable. But we did have some issues right off the bat. We went to break it in, and we actually had a steel fitting come out of a cast housing. It just looks like it wasn't pressed in right, or whatever it was. We've heard a couple issues with some hose clamps. That's the spring type hose clamp, and maybe a worm drive or something with more tension would have been better. But I'm not too worried about this, you know, and once again, you know, we're talking about durability, and we've only been in this week, you know, who knows how it's gonna last, but it sure does feel good. I've got confidence that everything's gonna be able to be worked out. All right, next comes living with this machine. Changing your oil, getting to your belt, all this stuff. So they've kind of changed it up a little bit, and they probably had to because of the motor and the configuration. But the clutch is now, you access it through the seats. So you pop out your seats, which actually come out pretty easy once you figure out how to do it. And there's a pretty easy panel that comes off, and you've got your air filter sitting right there, and you've got your belt. You know, something cool, just a little side note, is they actually put the belt removal tool right in the cover. It's got a little notch that sits in there. I thought that was a really nice touch, so you're not always looking for it. So it actually is pretty easy to get to. And then your oil filter and your dipstick, you can actually get to them. And you know, if you've ever changed the past models, changing the oil on a Polaris, you just got oil all over the motor. You can't get to it, it sucks. This looks really nice to get to, kind of more open. When we're talking about living with things, you know, price, and I was going to talk about price earlier, but I know for a fact you guys are thinking about price. You know, we've talked about it all week long. Every time we say we like something, we go, but yeah, it's this much. Or, you know, and the whole time you're like, well, that's really nice, but is it $45,000 nice? So what it comes down to is, you know, is it worth it to you? You know, and that brings it back to, is it worth it to me? And honey, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I already put money down. No, just kidding. No, my thoughts is I really like the chassis. I love the chassis. I love the suspension. This is a huge machine. It might be a little big for me, maybe back to the two-seater. And I don't know that I need the huge motor. I think that, you know, they've got the turbo R's coming out with this basic suspension and with the turbo motor, the older motor. And I spent a ton of time in the different machines. You know, I've got an XP Pro 4 right now. We've got the X3s. We've got, you know, all the different machines, and we spend a lot of time in them. And this is the pinnacle. This really is heads and shoulders above everything else out there as far as build quality and performance and electronics and everything. I really do think that where it is in the market is probably where it should be, which is crazy, but that's my opinion. Ooh, there is one last thing I forgot to talk about, and that's wheels and tires. So obviously we've all noticed that it's a 5-lug wheel, so that's new. Those are still coming. Everybody's kind of scrambling, trying to keep up with that, but we absolutely have tires. And this comes with 32s. This machine looks like and feels like it's made for 35. So that's probably one of my first mods I'm gonna make. And we do have a pretty good selection of 35-inch tires at RockyMountainATVMC.com. You know, we also have, you know, we've got all of our OEM parts that, you know, a lot of times we can get it to you very fast. So check us out. And if you like content like this, we have a ton of UTV videos on our channel. So make sure and subscribe. Like this video. We'd like that you like this video. Hopefully the conversation with your wife goes well, and you can get one of these on order so you can be out there tearing it up.